Okay, well, good morning, everybody, to this lovely, looks like it's going to be a lovely Friday morning. This is the morning devotionals, and my name is Mike, and I'll be guiding you through it. So today's reading is this one, which is Luke 10. I forgot to put the title up, I'm sorry. Luke 10, verse 35 to 42, and it's entitled Watchfulness. And it says this: "Be dressed, ready for service, and keep your lamps burning, like servants waiting for their master to return from a wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can immediately open the door for him. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them watching when he comes. Truly, I tell you, he will dress himself to serve, will have them recline at the table, and will come and wait on them. It will be good for those servants whose master finds them ready, even if he comes in the middle of the night or towards daybreak. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You must also be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him." Peter asked, "Lord, are you telling this parable to us or to everyone?" The Lord answered, "Who then is the faithful and wise manager whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their food allowance at the proper time? It will be good for that servant whom the master finds doing so when he returns. Truly, I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose the servant says to himself, 'My master is taking a long time in coming,' and then he begins to beat the other servants, both men and women, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with unbelievers. The servant who knows his master's will and does not get ready, or does not do what the master wants, will be beaten with many blows. But the one who does know and does things deserving punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked." So that is today's reading. Now this one gave me some problems. I struggled with this, and how could I do justice to what is written here in 15 minutes or less? And I had a talk prepared, but I scrapped it and started again. So what you have here is version 2, or my second attempt. The first section of the passage talks about being ready and watching out, being prepared for events to come. We are told to be ready and alert, as the master could return at any time and even in the middle of the night. And then in verse 46, a dire warning is given to those who are not prepared. So this is the backdrop, and there are lessons to be learned and warnings to be heeded. Now, the late Larry Norman was a pioneer in Christian music, and here he is. He came to prominence in the late 1960s, when the only music in church consisted of hymns, ancient and modern, and where the modern was really based around the style of the ancient. In 2008, Christian rock musician John J. Thompson wrote, "It is certainly no overstatement to say that Larry Norman is to Christian music what John Lennon is to rock and roll and Bob Dylan is to folklore." Anyway, in 1969, he released an iconic song quite simply called "I Wish We'd All Been Ready." The lyrics went something like this: "Life is filled with guns and war, and everyone gets trampled on the floor. I wish we'd all been ready. Children died, the days grew cold. A piece of bread could buy a bag of gold. I wish we'd all been ready. A man and wife asleep in bed. She hears a noise and turns her head. He's gone. I wish we'd all been ready. Two men walking up a hill. One disappears. One is left standing still. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. How could you have been so blind? The fathers spoke, the demon died. The son has come, and you've been left behind. This song speaks of a time when it is too late to respond and of missing the chance to acknowledge Jesus. Something I hope, and I'm pretty certain, doesn't apply to the audience here. So, what to do with your time? Do you use it wisely, or are you wasting time? These are the questions asked in this passage. Are you organized and prepared, as the passage exhorts us to be? Or are we, as outlined in verse 45, prone to stray and be distracted? No sign of the master, so let's lower our standards. Let's have some so-called fun. The master is not here. He won't see. Oh, what a folly, and how so many people fall for it. The film Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was released in 1991 and tells such a story. The King of England, the Plantagenet King Richard I, was away fighting in the Crusades, and in his absence, the evil Sheriff of Nottingham takes advantage. We all know the story. The film is a retelling of the old Robin Hood tale and was a great success and had an iconic soundtrack, including the Bryan Adams track, Everything I Do It For You, which was a #1 in many countries and co-written by country singer Shania Twain's ex-husband. And although this film is a fiction and based on 12th century folklore, one thing does ring true, and that is that wrongdoing will eventually be found out. The master will indeed return, as happens in the end of the film when Richard I returns in triumph, played by the late Sean Connery. Among the notable people in scriptures who didn't get away with it was King David when he sinned and took Bathsheba, who belonged to someone else. This instance highlights a lack of purpose on David's part and a consequent straying from the critical path. A wrong use of time. He had ceased to be watchful, and there are other examples like this which we don't have time to pursue now. Psalm 37 says this: be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways or carry out their wicked schemes. Refrain from anger. Do not fret. It only leads to evil. For those who are evil will be destroyed, but those who hope in the Lord will inherit the land. If you choose to stray, you will be found out, and the master will return when you least expect it. So where do we go from here? Well, let's consider for a moment this person who has been in the news all this week. This is Dame Deborah James, as she is now called after last night. Someone with a very moving and heartfelt story, and someone with not much time left on her hands. You may have picked up, I'm sure you have, that she, a very courageous lady, will shortly die of bowel cancer. She says her body isn't playing ball anymore and nothing else can be done. She was first diagnosed 5 years ago, and since then she has made every minute of her remaining life count. So at the very young age of 40, and with a young family, she will soon die unless there is a miracle. During those 5 years, as I've already said, since she was first diagnosed, she has worked tirelessly to raise awareness of cancer. Her consultant at the Royal Marsden Hospital said that he had never seen anything like this, and she was absolutely spectacular. She has also been part of a BBC podcast entitled You, Me and the Big C, along with other cancer sufferers, telling her story to millions. She produced her last ever recording late on Tuesday, 10th of May. I listened to it and it was a hard listen. She says, my body is so emaciated that I don't have a choice. I have no choice but to surrender to the inevitable. She then encourages her listeners to please enjoy life. It is so precious. And goes on to say, all I want is more time and more life. All I want is more time and more life. Let's consider that for a moment. You see, Dame Deborah James doesn't have more time. There is no time for distractions. When time is limited, when there is no time to waste, distractions and straying from the critical path are suddenly seen for what they are, a waste of time. We cannot put off until tomorrow if tomorrow may not happen. We don't have time to indulge in sinful activities. We need to prepare instead. We have read today that the Master will return at a time when we least expect it. We should live our lives, therefore, like Dame Deborah, because who knows what might happen. Please take this passage seriously and be watchful. Please also be diligent and remember that what we have, as Dame Deborah knows so well, is very precious. So please use the time you have very wisely. And in this, I am speaking from personal experience, and I know others here can also relate to that. I pray for each of us that our epitaph, when it comes, will be well done and good and faithful servant. Even King David, who sinned, was described as a man after God's heart. So even if you have strayed, there is still time to come back, but do it now before it's too late. We can be ordinary people who make a difference as we follow in the Master's footsteps. As we have seen, time is precious. Live your lives today and in the coming days as if it is about to run out, and make the most of every precious moment. So my closing words are, be prepared, be diligent, be watchful, and most of all, be ready. And remember once again that the time we have left to do this is not finite and is very precious. And that's my thoughts for today.